Greetings, inquisitive minds, and welcome to another journey into the profound mysteries of our universe. Tonight, we embark on an extraordinary expedition into the very bedrock of our existence, the story of human origins. From the whispers of ancient bones to the echoes of forgotten footsteps, we will trace the winding path that led to us. Prepare to immerse yourself in the saga of paleoanthropology, a science that illuminates the dawn of humanity. Settle in. Let the ambient sounds cradle your focus. If you find this exploration compelling, please consider liking, sharing, or leaving a comment. Let the story begin. From the distant whisper of cosmic winds to the gentle rustle of leaves in an ancient forest, let us delve into a profound journey. Tonight, we embark on an exploration of what defines us, how we came to be, and the remarkable echoes from the deep past that continue to shape our understanding of humanity. We are about to unravel the intricate tapestry of our ancestry, peering into the very origins of Homo sapiens. This vast and enthralling endeavor falls under the banner of paleoanthropology. Imagine, if you will, a meticulous detective story where the clues are not fleeting shadows, but petrified bones, fragmented tools, and faint footprints left on ancient landscapes. Paleoanthropology is that branch of paleontology and anthropology which dedicates itself to understanding the early development of anatomically modern humans. It is the science of hominization, the process by which we became us. Through the careful reconstruction of evolutionary kinship lines within the hominidae family, we piece together our story, drawing upon both biological evidence, like those incredibly preserved skeletal remains, and cultural evidence, such as the artistry of stone tools and the silent echoes of ancient settlements. This field is a convergence, a magnificent nexus where primatology, paleontology, biological anthropology, and cultural anthropology intertwine. As our methods and technologies advance, a new and powerful ally has emerged: genetics. It now plays an ever-increasing role, allowing us to examine and compare the very blueprint of life, DNA structure, as an indispensable tool for tracing the evolutionary kinship lines of related species and genera. It's like finding a universal language written in the very fabric of existence, allowing us to read the connections between us and our ancient relatives. The very word, paleoanthropology, carries the weight of its meaning derived from the Greek. Paleos, meaning old or ancient. Anthropos, meaning man or human. And the suffix logia, signifying the study of. So, literally, it is the study of ancient humans. A profound and humble name for such a grand pursuit. To truly understand our lineage, we must first establish the boundaries of our family tree, the classifications that help us organize the incredible diversity of life. We belong to the hominoids, a primate superfamily. Within this superfamily, the hominid family is currently understood to comprise both the great ape lineages and, of course, our own human lineages. Delving a layer deeper, the hominini encompass both the human and the African ape lineages, a crucial distinction. When we speak of African apes, we are specifically referring to chimpanzees and gorillas. The terminology within this immediate biological family is, it's worth noting, often in a state of flux, constantly refined as new discoveries shed more light. However, the term hominin is a distinct marker referring to any genus within the human tribe, the hominini. And within this exclusive tribe, Homo sapiens, modern humans, stand as the sole living specimen. The seeds of this science were sown many centuries ago, long before the systematic excavations we know today. In 1758, the great Swedish naturalist Carl Linnaeus, in the 10th edition of his monumental work, Systema Naturae, introduced the name Homo sapiens as a species name. Yet, It was introduced without a detailed scientific description of its species-specific characteristics. The great apes, due to their striking morphological similarities, were naturally considered our closest relatives. This observation, in the 19th century, led to a compelling hypothesis. If chimpanzees and gorillas were our nearest kin, and considering their natural range, it was highly probable that humans shared a common ancestor with these African apes. Consequently, it was surmised, quite presciently, that the fossils of these ancestors would ultimately be found in Africa. The true genesis of paleoanthropology as a distinct scientific discipline arguably began in the late 19th century. This was a period marked by groundbreaking discoveries and profound intellectual shifts that laid the foundation for the study of human evolution. The discovery of the Neanderthal in Germany in 1856, though initially misinterpreted, was a pivotal moment. Then came Thomas Huxley's influential work, Evidence as to Man's Place in Nature, published in 1863, which meticulously detailed the anatomical similarities between humans and apes. And, of course, Charles Darwin's monumental The Descent of Man, published in 1871, which directly addressed human evolution, building upon the principles he had outlined in On the Origin of Species. These three pillars were profoundly important to early paleoanthropological research. The modern field truly took shape in the 19th century with the discovery of Neanderthal man. While the eponymous skeleton was found in 1856, earlier finds elsewhere, dating back to 1830, hinted at these ancient inhabitants. Coupled with evidence of cavemen, a new understanding began to dawn. The concept of humans bearing similarities to certain great apes had been observed for some time. However, the revolutionary idea of the biological evolution of species in general did not gain scientific legitimacy until Darwin published On the Origin of Species in 1859. Intriguingly, Darwin's first book on evolution did not directly tackle the specific question of human evolution. He merely hinted at it, writing that light will be thrown on the origin of man and his history. Yet, the implications of his evolutionary theory were unequivocally clear to his contemporaries. Debates raged, notably between Thomas Huxley and Richard Owen, centered around this radical idea of human evolution. Huxley, with his meticulous anatomical comparisons, convincingly illustrated the many similarities and subtle differences between humans and apes in his 1863 book. By the time Darwin published his own dedicated work on the subject, The Descent of Man, the interpretation that humans had evolved was already a widely known and highly controversial understanding of his theory. Even some of Darwin's staunchest initial supporters, such as Alfred Russel Wallace and Charles Lyell, found themselves balking at the notion that human beings could have evolved their seemingly boundless mental capacities and intricate moral sensibilities solely through the mechanisms of natural selection. It was a bridge too far from many, a testament to the profound challenge this new science posed to prevailing worldviews. For a significant period, prior to the general acceptance of Africa as the crucible of the genus Homo, 19th century naturalists were intensely focused on locating the origin of humans in Asia. Tales and physical evidence of so-called dragon bones, fossilized bones and teeth from traditional Chinese apothecary shops were known, sparking a quiet curiosity. However, it wasn't until the early 20th century that the German paleontologist Max Schlosser provided the first scientific description of a single human tooth unearthed near Beijing. Though Schlosser, in 1903, was meticulously cautious, identifying the tooth only as anthropoid GTSP in det, he harbored a hopeful conviction that future endeavors would unearth a new anthropoid species in China. 11 years later, the Swedish geologist Johan Gunnar Andersson arrived in China as a mining advisor. It wasn't long before his interest shifted, captivated by the allure of these dragon bones. It was Andersson who, in 1918, made the initial discovery of the sites surrounding Zhejiang, a village nestled approximately 50 kilometers southwest of Beijing. Yet, due to the sparse nature of these initial finds, the site was, for a time, abandoned. Serious work at Zucudian did not resume until 1921. That year, the Austrian paleontologist Otto Zdansky, fresh from earning his doctoral degree in Vienna, came to Beijing to collaborate with Anderson. Zdansky conducted brief excavations at locality 1 in both 1921 and 1923, and his efforts yielded 2 significant teeth, 1 premolar and 1 molar. He described these, again with scholarly caution, as Homo sp. in 1927. With his findings documented, Zdansky returned to Austria, and fieldwork at the site once again paused. The news of these fossil hominin teeth electrified the scientific community in Beijing. Plans quickly coalesced for developing a more extensive, systematic project at Zucudian. At the heart of this burgeoning excitement was Davidson Black, a Canadian-born anatomist affiliated with the Peking Union Medical College. Black shared Anderson's fascination, as well as his conviction that Central Asia held immense promise as a cradle for early humankind. In late 1926, Black formally submitted a proposal to the Rockefeller Foundation, seeking crucial financial support for systematic excavations at Zucudian and, even more ambitiously, for the establishment of an institute dedicated to the study of human biology in China. The Zucudian project officially commenced in the spring of 1927. Just 2 years later, the Cenozoic Research Laboratory of the Geological Survey of China was formally established. This institution, a pioneering venture of its kind, flung open new avenues for the study of paleogeology and paleontology within China. It served as the direct precursor to what would eventually become the Institute of Vertebrate Paleontology and Paleoanthropology, IVPP, of the Chinese Academy of Science, an institute that assumed its modern structure after 1949. The initial major finds of the project are credited to the young Swedish paleontologist Anders Berger-Bolin, who was then serving as the field advisor at Zucudian. He recovered a left lower molar, which Black, in 1927, unequivocally identified as human. This discovery compared favorably to Zdansky's earlier find, and Black subsequently coined the name Sinanthropus pekinensis, or Peking Man. Initially, this announcement was met with a degree of skepticism. Many scholars harbored reservations, questioning whether a single tooth truly sufficed to justify the naming of an entirely new type of early hominin. Yet, within little more than 2 years, in the winter of 1929, Pei Wenzhong, then the field director at Zucudian, unearthed the very first complete skull cap of Peking Man 27 years after Schlosser's initial cautious description. The ancient presence of early humans in East Asia was no longer a speculative idea, but a tangible, undeniable reality. Excavations at the site continued with remarkable fruitfulness until the tragic outbreak of the Second Sino-Japanese War in 1937. The decade-long research efforts had yielded a treasure trove of faunal and lithic materials, alongside an astounding collection of hominin fossils. These included 5 more complete skull caps, 9 large cranial fragments, 6 facial fragments, 14 partial mandibles, 147 isolated teeth, and 11 postcranial elements, an estimated representation of at least 40 individual hominins. Evidence of fire, marked by distinct ash lenses and burned bones and stones, was also seemingly present, although some more recent studies have introduced challenges to this particular interpretation. Following Davidson Black's untimely death in 1934, Franz Weidenreich arrived in Beijing and assumed the critical role of studying these invaluable hominin specimens. The loss of the Peking Man materials in late 1941, during the turmoil of war, profoundly impacted scientific endeavors at Zucudian, leading to a significant slowdown, primarily due to a crippling lack of funding. A frantic, desperate search for these missing fossils ensued, a search that continued well into the 1950s. After the establishment of the People's Republic of China in 1949, excavations at Zucudian tentatively resumed. However, with political instability and social unrest brewing throughout China, particularly beginning in 1966, coupled with the dramatic new discoveries at Oldaway Gorge and East Turkana, often referred to as Cubifora, the paleoanthropological spotlight began to irrevocably shift westward towards East Africa. Despite China reopening its doors to the West in the late 1970s, a national policy emphasizing self-reliance, combined with a widened language barrier, unfortunately thwarted many possibilities for renewed scientific collaborations. As the Harvard anthropologist K.C. Chang observed, international collaboration in developing nations, very often a disguise for Western domination, became a thing of the past. A poignant reflection on the geopolitical forces that, at times, can overshadow the universal pursuit of knowledge. Meanwhile, a new chapter was being written, one that would fundamentally redefine our understanding of human origins: the African narrative. The first paleoanthropological find made on the African continent was the 1921 discovery of the Kabwe 1 skull at Kabwe, also known as Broken Hill, in Zambia. This specimen was initially christened Homo rhodesiensis. However, today, it is widely classified as part of the species Homo heidelbergensis, reflecting our evolving understanding of our ancient relatives. Then, in 1924, in a limestone quarry at Tong, a profound moment occurred. Professor Raymond Dart unearthed a remarkably well-preserved juvenile specimen, comprising a face and a brain endocast. Dart, recognizing its unique characteristics, named it Australopithecus africanus, a name that translates to southern ape. Although the brain was relatively small, measuring around 410 cubic centimeters, its shape was distinctly rounded, unlike the more elongated brain shapes observed in chimpanzees and gorillas, and instead bore a striking resemblance to the shape seen in modern humans. Furthermore, the specimen exhibited notably short canine teeth. Crucially, the anterior placement of the foramen magnum, the opening at the base of the skull where the spinal cord connects, was more akin to the placement found in modern humans than in chimpanzees or gorillas, strongly suggesting that this species was bipedal, walking upright. All these traits convinced Dart that the Tong child represented a bipedal human ancestor, a transitional form bridging the gap between ape and human. However, Dart's groundbreaking conclusions were largely dismissed and ignored for decades. The prevailing scientific view of the era stubbornly held that a large brain had to evolve before bipedality. It would take the discovery of numerous additional Australopith fossils across Africa, all bearing resemblances to Dart's specimen, and the eventual, decisive rejection of the infamous Piltdown Man hoax, for Dart's revolutionary claims to finally be taken seriously. The wheels of scientific consensus, at times, turned slowly, even in the face of compelling evidence. In the 1930s, the renowned paleontologist Robert Broom continued to build upon this African narrative. He discovered and meticulously described a new species at Kromdraai, South Africa. While in some aspects similar to Dart's Australopithecus africanus, Broom's specimen possessed significantly larger cheek teeth. This distinct difference led Broom to name his specimen Paranthropus robustus, introducing a new genus name. In doing so, he established the practice of grouping the more gracile, slender Australopiths within the genus Australopithecus and the more robust Australopiths within the newly designated genus Paranthropus. During the 1960s, the robust varieties were commonly reclassified under Australopithecus. However, a more recent consensus has seen a return to the original classification of Paranthropus as its own distinct genus, a testament to the ongoing refinement and evolution of our understanding. The latter half of the 20th century witnessed an exponential surge in paleoanthropological discoveries across Africa. Many of these pivotal finds were inextricably linked to the tireless work of the remarkable Leakey family in Eastern Africa, a lineage that became synonymous with the pursuit of human origins. In 1959, Mary Leakey's discovery of the Zinj fossil, catalogued as OH5 at Olduvai Gorge in Tanzania, led to the identification of a new species, Paranthropus boisei. Just a year later, in 1960, the Leakeys unearthed the fossil OH7, also at Olduvai Gorge, which they assigned to another new species, Homo habilis, meaning handy man, recognizing its association with early stone tools. In 1972, Bernard Genio, a dedicated fieldworker collaborating with Richard Leakey, discovered the fossil Kanemr 1470 near Lake Turkana in Kenya. Kanemr 1470 has been interpreted either as a distinct species, Homo rudolfensis, or alternatively, as compelling evidence of sexual dimorphism within Homo habilis. In 1967, Richard Leakey reported the earliest definitive examples of anatomically modern Homo sapiens from the site of Omo Kaibish in Ethiopia, now famously known as the Omo remains. In the late 1970s, Mary Leakey, with her keen eye, excavated the iconic Litoli footprints in Tanzania, a breathtaking preservation that irrefutably demonstrated the ancient antiquity of bipedality within the human lineage, pushing back the timeline for upright walking by millions of years. Then, in 1985, Richard Leakey and Alan Walker uncovered a specimen they dubbed the Black Skull, found near Lake Turkana, which was subsequently assigned to yet another species, Paranthropus ethiopicus. In 1994, a team led by Meave Leakey announced a new species, Australopithecus anamensis, based on specimens unearthed near Lake Turkana. Beyond the Leakeys, numerous other researchers contributed monumentally to these Eastern African discoveries. Perhaps the most celebrated of these is the Lucy skeleton, an almost complete fossil discovered in 1974 by Donald Johansen and Maurice Tayeb in Ethiopia's Afar Triangle at the Hadar site. Based on this remarkable skeleton and subsequent discoveries, these researchers identified a new species, Australopithecus afarensis. In 1975, Colin Groves and Vratislav Mazak announced a new species of human they called Homo ergaster. Specimens of Homo ergaster have since been found at numerous sites across eastern and southern Africa, painting a picture of a more widespread early human ancestor. In 1994, Tim D. White announced a new species, Ardipithecus ramidus, based on fossils recovered from Ethiopia. The turn of the millennium, in 1999, brought the announcement of two more new species, Burhane Asfaw and Tim D. White named Australopithecus garhi, based on specimens discovered in Ethiopia's Awash Valley. Simultaneously, Meave Leakey announced a new species, Kenyanthropus platyops, based on the cranium KNMWD 40,000 from Lake Turkana, further enriching the mosaic of early hominin diversity. The 21st century has continued this torrent of discovery, with numerous fossils being found that deepen our understanding of existing species and, thrillingly, unveil entirely new ones. For instance, in 2001, Zaresene Alamsejed made a profoundly significant find, an Australopithecus afarensis child fossil, affectionately named Salam, from the Dakika site in Ethiopia's Afar region. This particular find was extraordinary because the fossil included a preserved hyoid bone, a small, horseshoe-shaped bone in the neck rarely found intact in paleoanthropological specimens. Its preservation here is crucial for understanding the evolution of speech capabilities in our ancient ancestors, offering a glimpse into the very origins of human communication. Southern Africa has also yielded remarkable new species in recent years. In 2008, a team led by the charismatic Lee Berger announced a new species, Australopithecus setiba, based on a treasure trove of fossils they had discovered in Malapa Cave, South Africa. Then, in 2015, the same team, again led by Lee Berger, announced another astonishing species, Homo naledi, based on fossils representing an incredible 15 individuals from the Rising Star Cave system, also in South Africa. The sheer number of individuals found provided an unprecedented window into a single ancient population. Eastern Africa, ever focal point, has also continued to reveal new species. In 2000, Bridget Sennett and Martin Pickford meticulously described the species Auroran tugenensis, based on fossils they unearthed in Kenya. In 2004, Johannes Haile Selassie announced that some specimens previously categorized as Ardipithecus ramidus actually constituted a different species, which he named Ardipithecus cadaba. In 2015, Haile Selassie announced yet another new species, Australopithecus diaremida, although some scholars maintain a healthy skepticism, questioning whether the associated fossils definitively represent a truly unique species or perhaps variations within existing ones. This ongoing scholarly debate is a fundamental part of the scientific process, driving deeper inquiry and more robust evidence. While the vast majority of hominin fossils from Africa have been concentrated in the eastern and southern regions, there are a few notable exceptions that broaden our understanding of early hominin geographical range. One such exception is Sahelanthropus cadensis, discovered in the Central African country of Chad in 2002. This find is exceptionally important because it dramatically expands the assumed geographic range of early hominins, suggesting a more widespread distribution than previously thought. The story of our ancestry is a grand narrative, unfolding across continents and through millions of years. It is a testament to the relentless curiosity and meticulous dedication of generations of scientists. Each bone fragment, each stone tool, each footprint is a whisper from the past, inviting us to listen, to learn, and to ultimately understand the profound journey that has led to our existence. And as we continue to listen, with every new discovery, the echoes from the deep past grow clearer, defining our ancestry and illuminating the extraordinary path of human evolution. From the vast, sprawling landscapes of Eurasia, a different kind of ancient whisper began to stir, challenging the neatly drawn lines of our early understanding of human origins. For many of the pioneering minds of the 19th century, the East, with its ancient civilizations and enigmatic tales, felt like a natural crucible for the genesis of humanity. They sought the dawn of our species not in the rugged plains of Africa, but amidst the dusty trade routes and hidden valleys of Asia. The intriguing notion of dragon bones fueled much of this early speculation. These fossilized remains, often teeth and bone fragments, were not initially viewed as scientific treasures, but as components in traditional Chinese apothecaries, ground down for their supposed medicinal properties. Yet, these scattered clues held the promise of a deeper, untold story. It wasn't until the turn of the 20th century that a German paleontologist, Max Schlosser, cast a truly scientific eye upon a single human tooth unearthed in Beijing. With careful academic restraint, Schlosser identified it as belonging to an unknown anthropoid, but a seed of hope was planted, the possibility of a new lineage emerging from the heart of China. The stage was truly set a decade later with the arrival of Johan Gunnar Andersson, a Swedish geologist whose primary mission was mining consultancy, but whose secondary passion lay in those very same dragon bones. In 1918, his explorations led him to the sprawling limestone caves near Zhoukoudian, a small village nestled about 50 kilometers southwest of Beijing. Initial finds were sparse, almost dismissible, and the site lay dormant once more. The true awakening of Zhoukoudian came in 1921. Otto Zdansky, a fresh doctoral graduate from Vienna, joined Andersson's team. Zdansky's meticulous excavations, though brief, unearthed two crucial teeth, a premolar and a molar. His cautious identification of them as belonging to Homo sp, an early human species, ignited a flicker of excitement within the scientific community of Beijing. The implications were profound, even with such limited evidence. Among those most captivated by Zdansky's discovery was Davidson Black, a Canadian anatomist at Peking Union Medical College. Black shared Andersson's conviction that Central Asia was a fertile ground for discovering early humankind. Driven by this belief, he rallied support from the Rockefeller Foundation, envisioning a comprehensive excavation at Zhoukoudian and the establishment of a dedicated institute for human biology in China. Thus, in the spring of 1927, the Zhoukoudian Project was born, a collaborative effort that would fundamentally reshape our understanding of human history. 2 years later, the Cenozoic Research Laboratory of the Geological Survey of China was formally established, marking a pivotal moment for paleontological and paleoanthropological research in the East. The initial major breakthrough of the project came courtesy of Anders Berger-Bolin, a young Swedish paleontologist serving as field advisor. He unearthed a left lower molar, which Black, with remarkable foresight, declared unmistakably human. He named this new hominin Sinanthropus pekinensis, or Peking man. Skepticism initially reigned. Could a single tooth justify the naming of an entirely new species of early human? But the universe, as it often does, had a more dramatic revelation in store. In the winter of 1929, just 2 years after Black's bold pronouncement, Pei Wenzhong, the field director at Zhoukoudian, made an astonishing discovery: the first complete calvaria, or skullcap, of Peking man. The antiquity of early humans in East Asia was no longer a tantalizing theory. It was an undeniable, tangible reality. The echoes of an ancient past, once scattered fragments in an apothecary, now solidified into a coherent narrative. For the next decade, until the shadow of the Second Sino-Japanese War descended in 1937, Zhoukoudian became a veritable treasure trove. The relentless, meticulous work yielded an incredible wealth of artifacts and fossils. 5 more complete skullcaps, 9 large cranial fragments, 6 facial fragments, 14 partial mandibles, 147 isolated teeth, and 11 postcranial elements, collectively representing at least 40 individual early humans. The site also seemed to reveal compelling evidence of ancient fire use: ash lenses, burned bones, and heat-altered stones, though later studies would challenge some of these interpretations. Following Davidson Black's untimely death in 1934, Franz Weidenreich assumed leadership, meticulously studying the hominin specimens, painstakingly piecing together the story they told. But then, a tragedy of immeasurable proportions struck in late 1941. The priceless Peking man materials, the culmination of years of dedicated research, vanished amidst the chaos of war. To this day, their whereabouts remain one of paleoanthropology's most enduring and heartbreaking mysteries, a lost chapter in the human saga. The loss cast a long shadow, and scientific endeavors at Zhoukoudian slowed, largely due to a lack of funding and the enduring search for the missing fossils. After the establishment of the People's Republic of China in 1949, excavations did resume. However, the shifting geopolitical landscape, coupled with groundbreaking discoveries emerging from Olduvai Gorge and East Turkana in Africa, gradually redirected the global paleoanthropological spotlight westward. Africa was beginning to tell its own powerful story, one that would redefine the very cradle of humankind. Though China reopened its doors to the West in the late 1970s, a policy of national self-reliance, combined with the widening chasm of language barriers, made renewed international collaboration challenging. As the Harvard anthropologist K.C. Chang observed, the era of unbridled Western-dominated collaboration became a thing of the past. Yet, the legacy of Zhoukoudian and the dragon bones remains etched into the annals of science, a testament to the fact that the human story, in all its ancient wonder, is a mosaic built from discoveries across the entire, vast tapestry of our planet. And while the focus would indeed shift, the contributions from Asia remain an indispensable chapter in the grand narrative of our evolutionary journey. As the whispers of ancient oceans settle, and the cosmic dust of stellar birth drifts past, we turn our gaze inward to the cradle of our own existence. We journey now to the sun-drenched plains and ancient forests of Africa to uncover the earliest chapters of the human story. This is where the profound science of paleoanthropology truly begins to hum, a symphony of discovery that pieces together our fragmented past. Paleoanthropology, a name derived from the Greek for old man study, is far more than an academic pursuit. It is the relentless quest to understand the intricate dance of hominization, the process by which we, anatomically modern humans evolved. Imagine a vast, sprawling family tree, its branches reaching back millions of years. Paleoanthropology seeks to meticulously reconstruct these evolutionary kinship lines within the hominidae family, an endeavor that blends the rigors of paleontology with the insights of anthropology. Our evidence comes in many forms, each a precious clue left by time. Petrified skeletal remains, bone fragments no larger than your thumb, even the faint impressions of ancient footprints in solidified ash. These are the biological whispers. But the story isn't just written in bone. It's also etched in cultural artifacts. The sharp edges of stone tools, the remnants of early fire pits, the very localities where our ancestors gathered. These tell us not just what they were, but how they lived. This field is a grand tapestry woven from many threads. The study of primates, the deep history of life on Earth, the biology of our own species, and the customs of ancient cultures. And as technology marches forward, a new and powerful thread has joined the weave: genetics. The ability to examine and compare DNA structures has become an indispensable tool, allowing us to trace those kinship lines with an unprecedented level of detail, illuminating the deep evolutionary connections between related species and genera. For centuries, our place in the natural world was a mystery, shrouded in speculation. In 1758, Carl Linnaeus, the great taxonomist, simply named us Homo sapiens, wise man, without a detailed scientific description of our specific characteristics. But even then, based on observable similarities, the great apes were recognized as our closest living relatives. By the 19th century, with the groundbreaking work of Thomas Huxley and Charles Darwin, a compelling hypothesis began to emerge. If chimpanzees and gorillas were our closest kin, and they roamed Africa, then it was highly probable that our common ancestor would also be found on that vast continent. This was a revolutionary idea, one that would transform our understanding of where we came from. The true birth of modern paleoanthropology as a science arguably arrived in the late 19th century. The discovery of a Neanderthal in Germany in 1856 provided tangible proof of ancient human forms. This, coupled with Darwin's revolutionary On the Origin of Species in 1859 and as later The Descent of Man, ignited fierce debates and fueled the scientific community's quest to understand human evolution. Darwin himself, in his initial work, only hinted that light will be thrown on the origin of man and his history, but the implications were clear. The idea that humans could have evolved from earlier forms, though controversial, was now firmly on the table. Even as scientific thought turned towards Africa, the search for humanity's origins initially cast its gaze eastward, towards Asia. 19th century naturalists, intrigued by stories of dragon bones, fossilized bones, and teeth used in traditional Chinese apothecary shops, believed that this ancient land held the key. It wasn't until the early 20th century that the German paleontologist Max Schlosser first described a single human tooth from Beijing, cautious yet hopeful of what future discoveries in China might reveal. The journey truly began to accelerate with the Swedish geologist Johan Gunnar Andersson, who, as a mining advisor in China, developed a keen interest in these mysterious dragon bones. In 1918, he stumbled upon the sites around Zhoukoudian, a small village not far southwest of Beijing. Initial finds were sparse, and the site was temporarily abandoned. But the seed had been planted. In 1921, the Austrian paleontologist Otto Zdansky, working for Andersson, conducted short excavations at Zhoukoudian and unearthed two teeth of immense significance. He cautiously identified them as belonging to Homo sp, a human species. Though Zdansky soon returned to Austria, the news of these hominin teeth electrified the scientific community in Beijing. At the heart of this excitement was Davidson Black, a Canadian anatomist at Peking Union Medical College. Black shared Andersson's conviction that Central Asia was a promising cradle for early humankind. In 1926, he secured funding from the Rockefeller Foundation, setting in motion the ambitious Zhoukoudian project. This initiative was not just about excavation, It aimed to establish an institute for the study of human biology in China, laying the groundwork for what would become the renowned Institute of Vertebrate Paleontology and Paleoanthropology. The turning point came in 1927. The young Swedish paleontologist Anders Berger-Bolin, serving as field advisor, recovered a left lower molar. Black, recognizing its unmistakably human characteristics, boldly named it Sinanthropus pekinensis, Peking Man. Skepticism initially greeted the announcement. A single tooth seemed insufficient to justify a new early hominin. But then, in the winter of 1929, Pei Wenzhong, the field director, unearthed the first complete skull cap of Peking Man. After decades of speculation, the antiquity of early humans in East Asia was no longer a theory, but a breathtaking reality. Excavations at Zucudian continued, yielding a treasure trove of fossils and artifacts until the outbreak of the Second Sino-Japanese War in 1937. Over a decade, researchers uncovered 5 more complete skull caps, numerous cranial and facial fragments, mandibles, isolated teeth, and postcranial elements, representing at least 40 individuals. Evidence of fire, marked by ash lenses and burned bones, also seemed present, though recent studies have introduced new questions about its interpretation. Franz Weidenreich, who took charge of the hominin specimens after Black's untimely death, meticulously studied these priceless remains. The loss of the Peking Man materials in late 1941, during the chaos of war, remains one of the great tragedies of paleoanthropology. Despite frantic searches that continued into the 1950s, these pivotal fossils vanished without a trace. After the establishment of the People's Republic of China, excavations at Zucudian resumed, but with increasing political instability and new, spectacular discoveries emerging from East Africa, the paleoanthropological spotlight began to shift westward, towards the continent that would truly unlock the human story. China's subsequent period of self-reliance and widening language barriers meant that international collaboration, once a vibrant force, largely diminished for a time. And so, our gaze now turns to Africa, the continent that would ultimately confirm Darwin's prescient insight. The 1920s to the 1940s marked the dawn of the African discoveries. The first major find was the Kabwe 1 skull in Zambia in 1921, initially named Homo rhodesiensis, but now considered a member of Homo heidelbergensis. But the truly pivotal moment arrived in 1924. In a limestone quarry at Tong, South Africa, Professor Raymond Dart unearthed a remarkably well-preserved juvenile specimen, a face and the endocast of a brain. He named it Australopithecus africanus, the southern ape. Though its brain was small, its rounded shape, unlike that of chimpanzees and gorillas, hinted at a more human-like development. Crucially, its short canine teeth and the anterior placement of the foramen magnum, the opening at the base of the skull where the spinal cord connects, strongly suggested that this species was bipedal. Dart was convinced. The Tong child, he declared, was a bipedal human ancestor, a transitional form bridging the gap between ape and human. However, his conclusions were largely dismissed for decades. The prevailing scientific dogma of the time was that a large brain was the primary driver of human evolution, evolving before bipedality. It would take the discovery of many more Australopith fossils in Africa, echoing Dart's specimen, and the eventual exposure of the Piltdown Man hoax, a fabricated fossil from England that seemed to support the large brain first theory, for Dart's groundbreaking claims to finally be taken seriously. In the 1930s, the paleontologist Robert Broom, working at Kromdraai, South Africa, uncovered a new species. While sharing some similarities with Dart's Australopithecus africanus, Broom's specimen possessed remarkably larger cheek teeth. This difference led him to establish a new genus, Paranthropus robustus. This established a crucial distinction, grouping the more gracile Australopiths within the genus Australopithecus and the more robust forms into Paranthropus. Although this classification would fluctuate over the decades, with some moving the robust forms back into Australopithecus, the more recent consensus has seen a return to Broom's original classification, recognizing Paranthropus as a distinct lineage. The second half of the 20th century witnessed an explosion of paleoanthropological discoveries across Africa, largely spearheaded by the tireless work of the Leakey family in Eastern Africa. In 1959, Mary Leakey's remarkable discovery of the Zinj fossil *OH5*, at Olduvai Gorge in Tanzania led to the identification of Paranthropus boisei. Just a year later, in 1960, the Leakeys unearthed OH7, also at Olduvai Gorge, which they assigned to a new species, Homo habilis, the handyman, named for its association with early stone tools. The pace of discovery quickened. In 1972, Bernard Genio, a field worker for Richard Leakey, discovered KNMER 1470 near Lake Turkana in Kenya. This fossil has been interpreted either as a distinct species, Homo rudolfensis, or as evidence of significant sexual dimorphism within Homo habilis. In 1967, Richard Leakey reported the earliest definitive examples of anatomically modern Homo sapiens from Omo Kaibish in Ethiopia, known as the Omo remains. Then, in the late 1970s, Mary Leakey uncovered the iconic Litoli footprints in Tanzania, a truly astounding find that provided irrefutable proof of ancient bipedality in our lineage, preserved in volcanic ash. In 1985, Richard Leakey and Alan Walker discovered the striking black skull near Lake Turkana, assigned to another robust species, Paranthropus ethiopicus. And in 1994, Meave Leakey's team announced Australopithecus anamensis, based on specimens also found near Lake Turkana. Beyond the Leakeys, countless other researchers contributed to this torrent of discovery. Perhaps the most famous is Lucy, the remarkably complete Australopithecus afarensis skeleton, discovered in 1973 by Donald Johansen and Maurice Tayeb in Ethiopia's Afar Triangle. Based on Lucy and subsequent finds, they established this new species, which provided crucial insights into early bipedalism and ape-like upper body anatomy. In 1975, Colin Groves and Vratislav Mazak announced Homo ergaster, a species whose remains have been found at numerous sites across eastern and southern Africa. And in 1994, Tim D. White introduced Ardipithecus ramidus, based on fossils from Ethiopia, pushing the story of our lineage even further back in time. As the 20th century drew to a close, new species continued to emerge. In 1999, Australopithecus garhi was named by Berhane Asfaw and Tim D. White from Ethiopia's Awash Valley. That same year, Meave Leakey announced Kenyanthropus platyops, based on the intriguing cranium KNMWT 40,000 from Lake Turkana, adding another enigmatic branch to our ever-expanding family tree. The 21st century has seen no slowing in the pace of discovery, refining, and enriching our understanding of existing species. In 2001, Zeresine Alamsejd unveiled Salam, a remarkably preserved Australopithecus afarensis child fossil from Ethiopia. This find was particularly significant because it included a hyoid bone, a small, U-shaped bone in the neck that is rarely preserved but holds vital clues about the evolution of speech capabilities. Southern Africa, too, has seen a resurgence of major finds. In 2008, a team led by Lee Berger announced Australopithecus sediba, based on fossils from Malapa Cave. And in 2015, Berger's team made headlines again with the discovery of Homo naledi in the Rising Star Cave system, an astounding find representing 15 individuals, challenging our preconceptions about what it means to be human. Eastern Africa continues to yield new revelations. In 2000, Bridget Sinnott and Martin Pickford described Aurorin tugenensis from Kenya. In 2004, Johannes Haile Selassie reclassified some specimens previously attributed to Ardipithecus ramidus as a distinct species, Ardipithecus cadaba. And in 2015, Haile Selassie announced yet another new species, Australopithecus diaremida, though some scholars remain cautious about its unique species status. While most hominin fossils from Africa have been concentrated in the east and south, there are crucial exceptions that broaden our understanding of early human dispersal. One such exception is Sahelanthropus cadensis, discovered in the Central African country of Chad in 2002. This find is profoundly important because it significantly widens the assumed geographic range of early hominins, hinting at a more complex and widespread initial presence of our ancestors across the continent than previously imagined. From the cautious descriptions of isolated teeth to the monumental discoveries of complete skeletons, the African dawn has truly revealed the deep roots of humanity. Each fossil, each footprint, each ancient tool adds another brushstroke to the grand masterpiece of our evolutionary story, a story that continues to unfold, whispered from the deep past, urging us to listen closely. As we journey deeper into the echoes of our past, the very definitions we hold dear, the lines we draw between ourselves and our ancient kin, continue to shift and blur. Paleoanthropology, this profound blend of paleontology and anthropology, is a field forever in motion, constantly refining our understanding of hominization, the intricate dance of evolution that shaped anatomically modern humans. It is the meticulous reconstruction of kinship lines within the great family of hominidae, piecing together the biological whispers from petrified skeletal remains, the silent narratives of bone fragments, the indelible marks of ancient footprints. And it is also the careful reading of cultural artifacts, the sharp edges of stone tools, the remnants of ancient settlements, the stories etched in time by hands long gone. This field, in its very essence, is a grand synthesis, drawing its strength from primatology, paleontology, biological anthropology, and cultural anthropology. But with each sunrise of new technology, with every methodological leap forward, genetics plays an ever more crucial role. It allows us to peer into the very blueprint of life, to examine and compare the intricate spirals of DNA, transforming it into an indispensable tool for tracing the evolutionary kinship lines of related species and genera. It's a journey into the ancient past, guided by the cutting-edge insights of the present. The term itself, paleoanthropology, whispers its origins from the ancient Greek, paleos, meaning old, ancient, and anthropos, meaning man, human, all culminating in logia, the study of. It's a study of the ancient human, of the profound story written in bone and stone, a story that continues to unfold with every discovery. Now, let's navigate the fascinating and at times fluid landscape of hominoid taxonomies. Hominoids, in their grand superfamily, encompass us all. Within this, the hominid family currently embraces both the great ape lineages and our own human lineages. Delving a bit deeper, the hominini includes both human lineages and the African ape lineages, a term that in this specific context refers solely to chimpanzees and gorillas. The terminology, as you can probably sense, is a living thing, perpetually in flux as our understanding evolves. And then there's hominin, a term specifically reserved for any genus within the human tribe, the hominini, where Homo sapiens, modern humans, stands as the sole living specimen. The quest to understand our origins, the very dawn of this scientific endeavor, can be traced back to the 18th century. It was in 1758 that Carl Linnaeus, in the 10th edition of his monumental work Systema Naturae, bestowed upon us the name Homo sapiens. Yet, it was a name given without a detailed scientific description of our species-specific characteristics. The great apes, with their striking morphological similarities to humans, were then considered our closest relatives. This observation, coupled with a natural range of chimpanzees and gorillas, led to the compelling speculation in the 19th century. If humans shared a common ancestor with these African apes, then the fossils of those ancestors would, in all likelihood, eventually be unearthed on the African continent. It was a hypothesis, a brilliant deduction, that would dramatically reshape our understanding of human history. The true genesis of paleoanthropology as a modern scientific field arguably began in the late 19th century, marked by a series of pivotal discoveries and groundbreaking intellectual shifts. The Unearthing of the Neanderthal in Germany, followed by Thomas Huxley's seminal evidence as to man's place in nature, and of course, Charles Darwin's profoundly influential The Descent of Man, all converged to ignite the flames of early paleoanthropological research. Though the iconic Neanderthal skeleton was found in 1856, earlier discoveries of similar remains have been made as far back as 1830, hinting at a past where other human forms walked the earth. The concept that humans bore a striking resemblance to certain great apes had been an intuitive observation for ages. However, the audacious idea of the biological evolution of species in general did not gain scientific legitimacy until Charles Darwin unleashed On the Origin of Species upon the world in 1859. Darwin's first masterpiece on evolution intentionally tiptoed around the specific question of human evolution. Light will be thrown on the origin of man and his history, was the tantalizing whisper he offered on the subject. Yet, the implications of his evolutionary theory were undeniably clear, even startling to his contemporary readers. The ensuing debates between intellectual titans like Thomas Huxley and Richard Owen were squarely focused on this revolutionary idea of human evolution. Huxley, with his masterful command of observation, eloquently illustrated the many profound similarities and subtle differences between humans and apes in his 1863 work. By the time Darwin finally published his own dedicated exploration, Descent of Man, the interpretation of his theory, and indeed, the very controversy it sparked, was already a deeply ingrained part of the scientific discourse. Even some of Darwin's earliest and most ardent supporters, figures like Alfred Russel Wallace and Charles Lyell, found themselves faltering at the radical notion that human beings could have evolved their seemingly boundless mental capacities and their profound moral sensibilities solely through the crucible of natural selection. It was a bridge too far, even for some of the most open minds of the era. For a significant period, particularly in the 19th century, naturalists, often without the full breadth of evidence we possess today, looked towards Asia as the cradle of humanity. The so-called dragon bones, fossil bones and teeth, from Chinese apothecary shops were intriguing, but their significance remained largely unrecognized until the dawn of the 20th century. It was then that the German paleontologist Max Schlosser, in 1903, offered the first cautious description of a single human tooth unearthed in Beijing. Though Schlosser was meticulously conservative, identifying it only as anthropoid TSP in debt, he held a hopeful vision that future endeavors would unearth a new anthropoid species in China. 11 years later, the intrepid Swedish geologist Johan Gunnar Andersson arrived in China as a mining advisor, quickly developing a passionate interest in these mysterious dragon bones. It was Andersson who, in 1918, made the initial discovery of sites around Zhoukoudian, a village nestled approximately 50 kilometers southwest of Beijing. However, due to the sparse nature of these initial finds, the site was temporarily set aside. Work at Zhoukoudian lay dormant until 1921, when the Austrian paleontologist Otto Zdansky, fresh with his doctoral degree from Vienna, joined Andersson in Beijing. Zdansky conducted brief but focused excavations at Locality 1 in both 1921 and 1923, unearthing two teeth of profound significance, a premolar and a molar, which he, with characteristic caution, described as Homo sp. Having done his pioneering work, Zdansky returned to Austria, and fieldwork once again paused. News of these fossil hominin teeth, however, sent a ripple of excitement through the scientific community in Beijing. Plans for a much larger, more systematic project at Zhoukoudian rapidly began to take shape. At the epicenter of this burgeoning excitement was Davidson Black, a Canadian-born anatomist at Peking Union Medical College. Black shared Andersson's keen interest, along with his belief that Central Asia held immense promise as a potential homeland for early humankind. In late 1926, Black submitted a compelling proposal to the Rockefeller Foundation, seeking not only financial backing for systematic excavations at Zhoukoudian, but also the establishment of an institute dedicated to the study of human biology in China. The Zhoukoudian project officially sprang to life in the spring of 1927. 2 years later, the Cenozoic Research Laboratory of the Geological Survey of China was formally established. This institution, a true pioneer of its kind, flung open new avenues for the study of paleogeology and paleontology across China. It was the crucial precursor to the Institute of Vertebrate Paleontology and Paleoanthropology, or IVPP, of the Chinese Academy of Science, which would later take its modern form after 1949. The initial major finds of the project are credited to the young Swedish paleontologist, Anders Berger Bolin, who served as the field advisor at Zhoukoudian. He recovered a left lower molar that Davidson Black, in 1927, unequivocally identified as human. This led Black to coin the now famous term Sinanthropus pekinensis. Initially, this news was met with a healthy dose of skepticism. Many scholars harbored reservations that a single tooth could sufficiently justify the naming of an entirely new type of early hominin. Yet, a little over 2 years later, in the winter of 1929, Pei Wenzhong, then the dedicated field director at Zhoukoudian, unearthed the first complete calvaria of Peking man 27 years after Schlosser's initial cautious description. The ancient presence of early humans in East Asia was no longer a speculation, but an undeniable reality. Excavations at the site continued with incredible fruitfulness until the outbreak of the Second Sino-Japanese War in 1937 brought them to a grinding halt. That decade-long research yielded an astonishing wealth of faunal and lithic materials, alongside an invaluable collection of hominin fossils. These included 5 more complete calvaria, 9 substantial cranial fragments, 6 facial fragments, 14 partial mandibles, 147 isolated teeth, and 11 postcranial elements, estimated to represent at least 40 individual hominins. Evidence of fire, marked by distinct ash lenses and burned bones and stones, was also seemingly present, though recent studies have begun to challenge and re-examine this particular view. Franz Weidenreich arrived in Beijing shortly after Black's untimely passing in 1934, stepping in to take charge of the meticulous study of these invaluable hominin specimens. Following the tragic loss of the Peking man materials in late 1941, scientific endeavors at Zhoukoudian significantly slowed, largely due to a dire lack of funding. A frantic search for the missing fossils ensued, continuing well into the 1950s. After the establishment of the People's Republic of China in 1949, excavations at Zhoukoudian tentatively resumed. However, with mounting political instability and social unrest brewing in China, particularly from 1966 onwards, coupled with the monumental discoveries being made at Oldaway Gorge and East Turkana, the paleoanthropological spotlight began its inexorable shift westward towards the fertile grounds of East Africa. Although China eventually reopened its doors to the West in the late 1970s, a national policy emphasizing self-reliance, alongside a widened language barrier, unfortunately thwarted many possibilities for renewed scientific collaborations. As the Harvard anthropologist K.C. Chong noted with a touch of melancholy, international collaboration in developing nations, very often a disguise for Western domination, became a thing of the past. Meanwhile, on the African continent, a different chapter in our story was beginning to unfold. The first paleoanthropological find made in Africa was the 1921 discovery of the Kabwe-1 skull at Kabwe, then known as Broken Hill, in Zambia. Initially, this specimen was christened Homo rhodesiensis. However, today it is more widely accepted as part of the species Homo heidelbergensis. Then, in 1924, amidst a limestone quarry at Tong, a profound discovery was made by Professor Raymond Dart, a remarkably well-preserved juvenile specimen, a face and a brain endocast. Dart, recognizing its significance, named it Australopithecus africanus, which translates to southern ape. While the brain was small, measuring around 410 cubic centimeters, its shape was distinctively rounded, unlike the more elongated brains of chimpanzees and gorillas, and instead bore a striking resemblance to the shape seen in modern humans. Furthermore, the specimen displayed short canine teeth, and the anterior placement of the foramen magnum, the opening at the base of the skull where the spinal cord connects, was positioned more like that of modern humans than of chimpanzees and gorillas. This latter trait strongly suggested that this species was bipedal, walking upright. All these compelling features convinced Dart that the Tong child was indeed a bipedal human ancestor, a crucial transitional form bridging the gap between ape and human. However, Dart's conclusions were, for decades, largely overlooked. The prevailing scientific wisdom of the time maintained that a large brain was the prerequisite for bipedality, not the other way around. It would take the discovery of additional Australopith fossils in Africa, fossils that closely resembled this specimen, and crucially, the eventual unmasking of the infamous Piltdown Man hoax, for Dart's revolutionary claims to finally be taken seriously. In the 1930s, the indefatigable paleontologist Robert Broom added another layer to this unfolding narrative. At Kromdraai, South Africa, he discovered and meticulously described a new species. While bearing some similarities to Dart's Australopithecus africanus, Broom's specimen boasted significantly larger cheek teeth. This distinct difference led Broom to name his specimen Paranthropus robustus, introducing a new genus name. In doing so, he established the practice of grouping the more gracile Australopiths within the genus Australopithecus and the more robust Australopiths within the genus Paranthropus. Although during the 1960s, the robust varieties were commonly subsumed back into Australopithecus, a more recent consensus has seen a return to the original classification of Paranthropus as its own distinct genus, acknowledging the unique evolutionary path it represents. The latter half of the 20th century truly became a golden age for paleoanthropological discoveries in Africa. The number of finds skyrocketed, many of them inextricably linked to the pioneering work of the remarkable Leakey family in East Africa. In 1959, Mary Leakey's iconic discovery of the Zinj fossil, catalogued as OH5 at Olduvai Gorge in Tanzania, led to the identification of a new species, Paranthropus boisei. Just a year later, in 1960, the Leakeys unearthed another pivotal fossil, OH7, also at Olduvai Gorge, which they assigned to a new species, Homo habilis, the handyman. Then, in 1972, Bernard Ngenio, a dedicated fieldworker collaborating with Richard Leakey, uncovered the fossil Kanemiar 1470 near Lake Turkana in Kenya. Kanemiar 1470 has been interpreted either as a distinct species, Homo rudolfensis, or alternatively, as compelling evidence of sexual dimorphism within Homo habilis. In 1967, Richard Leakey reported the earliest definitive examples of anatomically modern Homo sapiens from the Omo Kaibish site in Ethiopia, known collectively as the Omo remains. In the late 1970s, Mary Leakey, with her characteristic keen eye, excavated the famously preserved Litoli footprints in Tanzania, indelible proof that bipedality, our upright stance, was an ancient characteristic deeply embedded in the human lineage. In 1985, Richard Leakey and Alan Walker made the striking discovery of a specimen they dubbed the Black Skull, found near Lake Turkana. This specimen was assigned to yet another species, Paranthropus ethiopicus. And in 1994, a team spearheaded by Meave Leakey announced the discovery of a new species, Australopithecus anamensis, based on specimens found near Lake Turkana, further enriching the tapestry of our African ancestors. Beyond the remarkable contributions of the Leakey family, numerous other researchers have made profound discoveries in Eastern Africa. Perhaps the most celebrated of these is the iconic Lucy skeleton, unearthed in 1973 by Donald Johansen and Maurice Tayeb in Ethiopia's Afar Triangle, at the site of Adar. Based on this remarkably complete skeleton and subsequent discoveries, the researchers proposed a new species, Australopithecus afarensis. In 1975, Colin Groves and Vratislav Mazak announced a new species of human, which they named Homo ergaster. Specimens of Homo ergaster have since been found at numerous sites across both eastern and southern Africa. In 1994, Tim D. White brought forth a new species, Ardipithecus ramidus, based on a collection of fossils from Ethiopia, pushing the timeline of our lineage even further back. The turn of the millennium, the dawn of the 21st century, also ushered in a flurry of new discoveries. In 1999 alone, 2 new species were announced. Burhane Asfaw and Tim D. White named Australopithecus garhi, based on specimens discovered in Ethiopia's Awash Valley. Simultaneously, Mevliki announced another new species, Kenyanthropus platyops, identified from the cranium KNMWD 40,000 found at Lake Turkana. The 21st century continues to be a period of intense discovery, with countless fossils unearthed that enrich and refine our current understanding of existing species. For instance, in 2001, Zeresine Alamseged made a truly remarkable find, a child fossil of Australopithecus afarensis, affectionately nicknamed Salam, from the site of Dakika in Ethiopia's Afar region. This particular discovery holds immense significance because the fossil included a preserved hyoid bone, a small, horseshoe-shaped bone in the neck, something exceedingly rare in paleoanthropological finds. The hyoid bone is critical for understanding the evolution of speech capacities, offering a silent whisper from the deep past about the origins of our most fundamental form of communication. Southern Africa, too, has continued to yield extraordinary new chapters in our evolutionary story. In 2008, a team led by the charismatic Lee Berger announced a new species, Australopithecus setiba, based on fossils they meticulously uncovered in Malapa Cave, South Africa. Then, in 2015, another team, again led by Lee Berger, unveiled yet another sensational species, Homo naledi. This discovery was particularly astounding, comprising fossils representing 15 individuals from the intricate Rising Star Cave system, deep within South Africa. And the discoveries from Eastern Africa continued unabated. In 2000, Bridget Sennett and Martin Pickford described the species Aurantigenensis, based on fossils they found in Kenya. In 2004, Johannes Haile Selassie announced that some specimens previously categorized as Ardipithecus ramidus actually constituted a different species, which he named Ardipithecus cadaba. Then, in 2015, Haile Selassie announced yet another new species, Australopithecus deremida, though some scholars remain cautiously skeptical, debating whether the associated fossils truly represent a unique and distinct species. While the majority of hominin fossils from Africa have historically been concentrated in the eastern and southern regions, there are a few notable exceptions that broaden our understanding of early human geography. One such exception is Sahelanthropus cadensis, discovered in the Central African country of Chad in 2002. This pivotal find is profoundly important because it dramatically widens the assumed geographic range of early hominins, hinting that our ancient ancestors roamed far wider across the continent than previously imagined. Each of these discoveries, each carefully cataloged bone, each stone tool unearthed, each ancient footprint preserved in time, is a fragment of a grand, unfolding narrative. Paleoanthropology is not a static field. It is a living, breathing testament to our insatiable curiosity about where we come from. It is a constant process of rewriting, refining, and reimagining our lineage, each new chapter revealing a deeper, richer, and more complex story of human evolution. The journey continues, and with every new find, the echoes from the deep past grow clearer, bringing us closer to understanding the extraordinary saga of our existence. As our journey through the annals of paleoanthropology draws to a close, we emerge with a deeper appreciation for the intricate tapestry of our evolutionary past. Each fossil, each footprint, a silent testament to the resilience of our ancestors. Thank you for joining me on this immersive exploration, and I hope it offered you a moment of quiet focus or peaceful rest. If you found resonance in these stories, please like, share, and follow for more profound journeys. What thoughts did this narration spark within you? And what scientific wonders would you like us to explore next? Until our next shared discovery, stay curious,